It is day 28 of my journey towards writing my first fantasy novel, and I have such a cool idea. And in fact, this is not a new idea. As you know, I've been collecting a lot of different story elements, and I'm currently in this last week of January in the phase where I'm compiling everything into a coherent story structure, which is very important once I start writing in February. So I'm going back through all my notes, and even though I started writing on January the 1st, I started conceptualizing what this story could be about long before that. And so I found some notes from November last year. And one of the very random ideas, this was way before I knew that I wanted to write a story that took place in the 6th century in Ireland. But one of those ideas was, well, what if I write a story about a group of gifted young people that team up like an RPG group. So you've got different functions in that group. So you've got a healer, you've got a warden, maybe a bard, you have a captain. The stuff that you can find in a lot of the lit RPG genre, which is it's like a separate genre within fantasy literature, where it takes a lot of the structure and the kind of the mechanics of an RPG game, a role-playing game, in case you are not familiar with the acronym. I've been playing role-playing games for many, many years, so I'm quite familiar with these different classes. But since I kind of switched to this idea of, oh, let's focus on the Middle Ages in Ireland. Let's take a young monk and a young nun, and then an angel. I had this idea of, well, Ethan should be this shape-shifting angel. You've been following the development of this idea. So I never thought back of that RPG idea. But when I saw this morning in my notes, lightning struck, and all of a sudden I saw what I should do. I'm still going to start the story with Tim and Ilara. They're probably going to have new names very soon, but I'm still kind of debating which ones. But the whole story, as I have developed it until now, and you've witnessed this evolution, it's all going to stay in place. But I'm going to change something between what you already know and the final culminating battle. And what is going to happen in the middle of my book? It is this quest by Tim and Ilara to find a team that can help them defeat the evil mages. They know that they can't do this alone. The first member of this team is going to be Fortivus. We know that he's a double agent, but we also know that ultimately he is going to convert. So he will be part of the good people. But what if I add some more members to this team? And the first idea that I had was, well, you know what? It would be very cool to add 2 proteges to the group. So what if Ilara is friends with a younger sister who is, the opposite of Ilara? She's kind of timid, maybe a little bit on the spectrum, maybe a bit autistic, but she is very creative. She loves cooking. She loves nature. She's a great musician. But because she is socially a bit awkward, she's always being picked upon by the other sisters, and she's targeted by Mother Abbess, and so or Mother Superior, I should say. And Ilara kind of takes her under her wings. However, this girl is so talented, and it's this whole theme of hidden power. So on the outside, it's this nerdy kid, but once she gets her position, her role, her unique role in the team, she's going to be a formidable asset. So that is one of the new team members. Then I thought, well, maybe Tim also has like an apprentice or another kid. And what could set this kid apart from Tim and from the other members of the group? And how can I tie that into the theme of this kind of religious background, this monastic background? And all of a sudden, I had an idea. There is this 19th century Italian saint, very young, called Dominic Savio. He's the patron saint of the unjustly convicted, patron saint, I think, also of the acolytes or the altar boys. And this was a very pious young boy from a very religious family. And he was taken under the wings by, what's his name? The Italian Dom, let me look that up real quick. Don Bosco. So Don Bosco kind of tutored him. So it's kind of that same relationship. Don Bosco was a great saint, very charismatic. And then you had this young boy who was extremely devout, very prayerful, very talented, but also very sick, always super fragile. And that became, like, I remember when I was still in seminary, reading a lot about the life of this Dominic Savio. And this gave me an idea for who could be the protege of Tim. It could also be a similar kind of young monk who is very devoted to his faith, always, trying to do his best. So in that respect, he is a lot like Tim, but he's also always sick. He falls quickly. He is clumsy. I don't know, breaks his arm. So many things can go wrong. But Tim kind of protects him. And here too, this boy actually has a hidden power that will reveal itself later on in the story, which is maybe the biggest power of all of them. Because what can this boy do? When he focuses in prayer, he can actually channel great saints of the past and maybe even saints of the future. Why not? We already have established that story magic can create portals to the future as well, at least visions of the future. And in those moments when he connects with a saint, he becomes like, he emulates that saint. And maybe from church history, that a lot of these saints have special powers. For instance, there are saints that have the gift of bilocation. So they can be in two places at the same time. You have saints that have the power to cast out demons. All the stuff that you read in the gospel, these special gifts that not only Jesus displays, but also his disciples have that same power, which of course is derived from Jesus. You see these kind of themes also recurring in church history, and you see these gifts, these talents appear among saints. So what if this young, fragile boy who nobody thinks will ever do anything extraordinary has this incredible gift where if he focuses in prayer, he becomes as strong as the strongest saints, and he can channel all these different gifts and talents. And so basically the toolbox of his power is unlimited. It just requires him to focus. And then, of course, he'll pay a price for this because he is still very weak. So, how is he going to recharge his energy? But I love this idea of this unassuming young boy actually being the most powerful story mage in the group. And then I came up with another idea, and you see this in the picture here on my right. So these two kids are side characters. They're going to tag along, but they're not part of the core group. Because they're still kind of, maybe in future books they will play a bigger role when they grow up a little bit, get stronger. But you see these two ladies that look like mages, and they both, one has a sword and the other one kind of wields magic. What if our friends encounter these two sisters? They're not religious sisters, no, they're sisters, family. And the both of them are not Christian. They have not been evangelized. But they tap into kind of this ancient mythical power of the Celtic tradition. And then they join the team because even though they're not Christian, they're not monks, they're not sisters, they still share the same ideals. They have a lot in common with our friends. But that creates such an interesting dynamic because then all of a sudden my story is not just like a pious Catholic fantasy. No, it becomes about the encounter of these cultures, which is exactly what happened in the early Middle Ages, where these early Christians, these early monks and sisters, started to integrate the existing culture and the existing Celtic wisdom into Christianity. The Book of Kells is a beautiful visual example of that, where you have the text of the gospel, but illustrations that show the whole mythological range, you could say, of a much older Celtic culture. I think this could make the story so powerful. And then just imagine the dynamic within that group. All of a sudden, I've got a story that resembles like the Wheel of Time. It resembles the Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, just the scope of the story all of a sudden is so much bigger, and like my head is exploding with ideas on how I can like play these characters and the way they interact and the way they help each other and the kind of the conflicts they may have, the friction. This is the best idea ever. And I wrote this on November the 24th. This is why you always should take notes. This is why you should never throw away even the most like ridiculous ideas, because they may come back in full force. And I am really loving this whole idea. And not to mention the potential for future stories. I'm just saying, this group is way too interesting to contain within just one story. But let's first write this first novel. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and follow for more.